or the 9th of April 2023, as I start recording this video. I don't know if I will publish the video, but sometimes I just need to talk, because when I talk alone, I just express my thoughts, and I don't know if I'm gonna do this, but what I might do in the coming weeks or months, I don't know, but I have finished recording my videos about home economics. I still intend to make an introduction and maybe another video, and then there are other planned videos that I'm working on as I record this. I'm working on lectures and videos on journalism, and yeah, but maybe then, if I have the opportunity, I will just record ordinary videos once people, at least some people, get the full view, because showing the full picture of the system each time, it's a little bit exhausting. Yeah. The kind of suffering that not the only, but one type of suffering that I experience is simply in a way an excess of intellect and of too much information, in a way. And this might be, maybe at some moment we will discover maybe that the reason why there are so many people on this planet with a low IQ, and maybe the reason why most people with a high IQ have been dumped down by the educational system, is precisely because one good aspect is that when you are stupid and you become smart, that's sense of fulfillment. But maybe because thinking too much really hurts, sometimes physically, but it hurts in an existential way, and this is not a kind of suffering which is widespread. But here Eminem talks about this in some of his songs, Echo, My Dad's Gone Crazy, and other songs, Rap God, where his brain really processes information and verbal creativity at a speed, and the same goes for Kanye West. These really artistic genius in the modern pop culture industry, they are overpowered in terms of brain processing. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily super intelligent in terms of IQ, although they have significantly higher than average IQ, which is being manifested in their way of expressing, but their verbal and artistic creativity, which is partly connected with brain functioning, is really exceptional. In a sense, in both meaning of the word, it's exceptional in the sense that it's amazing, but it's also an exception in the sense that they are really wired differently. They are really here I'm talking about Eminem and Kanye West. They are really the two modern artists which stand out, masculine artists. I think they really suffer from an excess of brilliance in different kinds, but they suffer from an excess of brilliance. And whatever God is, when I talk about God, when I do, now I used the not the definition, but the expression of Spinoza or Schelling to simplify, to avoid misunderstanding or to reduce. We live within God. Schelling wrote this, and Spinoza he did not write this. I mean, it's not written literally in the works of Spinoza, but actually it is for Spinoza, God is the substance, and therefore everything that is within the substance. Accidents, modes of the substance in the attribute of extension and thought. So yeah, one way of formatting is we live within God. God is the not the fact, but the presence of an entire world, the universe, and it's so overwhelming in a way that the only known author, I mean the only author that I'm aware of whose view resemble vaguely the view that I have in moments like this is Philip K. Dick. He has a view of a super cognitive intelligent entity, and yeah. And the mystical in Indian text, they have a similar view, partly Sankara as well. But I have been noticing over the past year, one might say, but the past many months, that when I sit and think, there are so many assumptions which for me are self-evident because they have been for many years, because of my education, my self-taught knowledge, one might say, about philosophy, or my cultural knowledge, which are self-evident for me, and which actually, if we just take other people as normal individuals without the very complex view of God, just we consider humans as ordinary humans, most people, as far as I can tell, do not ask themselves too many questions. They just go about in life. It's kind of planned by society. You go to school, you get a job, you seek a partner, either in the modern West, sometimes for sex, or for founding a family in more traditional societies. And you raise children, you raise kids, and yeah, that's a normal life in the modern Western standard. But yeah, and they just go about their life, getting an income, finding a partner, raising kids. Yeah. And here I'm in a very, I would say, calm mood, but in a sense of I'm a little bit physically tired, although I've just slept for a couple of hours. But I'm on Sunday, for many months I haven't eaten. I do not eat on Sunday as some sort of a training to reduce my consumption, but also to train my faculty of dealing with less energy. The result is that I'm usually tired on Sundays because I do not eat. I do not recommend or advise anyone to do this, but simply I try to just my weekly Ramadan, one might say. No, that's not the inspiration, but simply I just wanted to take a day off day off of eating once a week, and I've been doing this for many months. I'm not sure that it's very healthy from a diet point of view, or that it's very useful, but that's kind of a life discipline. Yeah, but yeah, so I'm usually tired on Sunday, but yes, so I'm in a calm mood, and sometimes I can be a little bit pissed off or angry because I suffer, because I am misunderstood, because I cannot communicate, because I have to do small talk with the people that I encounter with. Sometimes it can be pleasant. I can have interesting small talk conversations, but I haven't been able to have a peaceful discussion with someone who shares the same references ever since I've acquired a culture. I can't communicate with an other about my cultural references. When I talk about my cultural references, I have no one to talk to or to talk with. And I know there are people who share the same references, but they they would be maybe in the position of a pupil. They would, and that's not what I'm seeking. I'm just seeking friends in a sense of people that I could talk with peacefully about topics of interest. But, yeah. But yeah. So when I'm in a calm mood, I I'm in my Christian self of forgiveness, etc. Because I have too many problems to care about the misbehavior of most people. I I I I sometimes I suffer and I become partly resentful or bitter depending on because I cannot communicate. And I I don't blame when I'm in a stable mood. I don't blame the people who have just an ordinary life and who ask themselves no questions, because maybe they are the counterparts. There are many people quantitatively who go through life without asking themselves much questions. Religious people traditionally they don't the purpose of praying or going to church or to the mosque or to the synagogue or to have religious communities, precisely it's to find an alternative to the modern scientific mindset. So the modern West, in terms of the scientific enterprise of the past 400 years, I simplify, it's only adapted. The libertarian ideal, actually, I simplify. It's adapted to a highly intelligent, individualist group of people, Northwestern whites. It can be universalized, and indeed there are people of all origins who share the same ideal, but quantitatively it remains limited. Even among the Northwestern white population, it's an ideal of intellectual aristocrats, the scientific ideal, and whose consequence has been historically and is actually individual liberty, the democratic ideal, not in the mass democracy socialist type of way, but the Republican ideal, a republic of scientists. It was already the dream, some sort of Erasmus during the Renaissance and the Renaissance intellectuals. A republic of wise, intelligent, knowledgeable men. But it's an ideal which is good. It sounds good, and most of the time it is good, and it has brought about an enormous amount of success for an enormous amount of people, not in terms of necessarily knowledge, but at least increase of life expectancy, demographics, life conditions, etc. The scientific ideal of Bacon and Francis Bacon and New Atlantis, etc. The modern utopia, in a way, which has become kind of realized, but which has brought forth also excesses. But yeah, I can't, when I'm in a calm mood, I cannot blame the mass of humans for not being too philosophically minded and too to go through life without asking themselves too many questions, or for seeking simple answers in religion or in ideologies. Here, not in the negative sense. Usually when I say ideology, it's negative, but people who seek spirituality, yeah, I would say spirituality, whether it's ecological or Buddhist, Zen, meditation, the trendy Asian spirituality in the West, etc. I can't blame them, because the work of the intellect is sometimes painful, existentially, one might say. Yeah. Because I've already said this, but actually my problem is, in fact, that's one of my problem is intelligence, in the sense that that's the problem of libertarians. A society with high IQ people who agree on a fundamental set of principles, there would be, I mean, maybe there would be still problems because of socio-biological determinism, but most people would have no problem interacting with members of other races or other culture, because when people really are intelligent and educated and share some principles, it's much easier to live together. That's again the ideal of the Enlightenment, to solve religious conflicts. That was the problem of the 17th and 18th century thinkers, political thinkers, either authoritarian like Hobbes or liberal like Montesquieu, Locke, etc. How to transcend social problems, and intelligent people, not just in terms of IQ, but really intelligent in the sense of kind of partly wise, but also intellectually able. It's much easier to transcend other distinctions of origin, race, even culture. Yeah. But so that's the ideal, but the reality is that there are a significant number of people who have relatively low intelligence in all ethnic groups. It's distributed differently, but in every group there are people with relatively low intelligence, and there are some groups, ethnic groups, where there are a significant proportion of people with lower intelligence than in other groups. But yeah. There is sometimes the moral suffering, but I experience a lot as well of intellectual suffering. Yeah, and Philip K. Dick understood this. Yeah. that's poetically expressed. That's the light of the sun, which is just too brilliant, and it hurts because it's too intense in a way. It can warm and enlighten and appease, of course. Most of the time that's what it does, but if it's too brilliant, it can hurt. Yeah. So sometimes that's what I've been doing actually over the past many months, slowing down my mental activity by reading less, watching less videos, and going outside, picking up the trash, or just sitting while reading most of the time, or just to walk. It has done me a whole lot of good, because too much intellect, it hurts really, and it's excessive in a way. So that's why I have tried to find balance in my day-to-day life by spending a significant portion of my days doing daily routine, cleaning my room, washing the dishes, picking up the trash, yeah. And the topic of mental health and social media, it's becoming trendy, but actually social media really drives people insane, because you get fragments of reality, in a way, tiny bits of reality, and that's why, I mean, it's not to answer the problem of social media, but the excess of information with no structure, with no order, conscious order, which people are subjected to, especially the young. Here, I'm an old person already, officially I'm 30 years old. I did not have access to the internet regularly until probably my 16th year, so, or 15th, I don't know exactly, but it has taken me a lot of time before I had access to the internet. So when I was a child or a young teenager, I had almost no access to the internet. I did not grow up with social media. And for the young, that's insanity. Those who are in high school with the reputation, the friends, etc., online, that's insanity. I'm not in favor of censorship. I'm not in favor of censorship, but I'm in favor of the patriarchy, and the parents. They ought to forbid and to prevent their children, even until, I don't know. Ideally, that would be the age 25 for males, because that's when the brain starts to, the brain has matured, but maybe it's a little bit excessive. At least 21. No, actually, young people, they should not express themselves on social media, because they have no, they lack experience, they lack a sense of responsibility. Yeah, so patriarchal authoritarianism, but not legislative censorship. That would be my view. That's my view, actually. Young people should not talk on social media. Morally, they should be prevented morally, not legally, because if you start, I see the trick, if you start to censor for moral purposes, then you censor all sorts of contents which are useful for the unfolding of truth. So yeah, but the moral, that's why the patriarchy has to be restored, and responsible parents, they should not allow their children and their teenagers or young adults to talk on social media, or to spend too much time, because it really drives people insane, because there is too much information. And here I express a problem that only philosophers suffer from, so that's not really interesting, except for them. Twitter, TikTok, and politics, slogans, that's anti-philosophy, not in an intelligent Hegelian way, in the sense that empiricism is anti-philosophy, but actually that's the kind of anti-philosophy which actually is part of philosophy and is good, but it's really anti-philosophy in the sense that it's, because philosophy, one way, the formal aspect at least, it's to demonstrate through reasoning, argumentation, thinking, the unfolding of thought. It requires time to unfold, to develop, to mature. It was already the case in the dialogues of Plato. The truth, the dialectical unfolding, it took. You have to, if you read intelligently a dialogue from Plato, you have to read the unfolding of the discussion. When you read Aristotle or Spinoza or Kant, you have to focus, and there is reasoning, there is a structure, there is order, there is a coherence which is planned by the author of the book. Important ideas, they require a minimum of attention to be understood, to be expressed, to be formulated. And Twitter, TikTok, and politics, actually, it's the form, very short, limited way of expressing is prevents the expression of the content. Maybe geniuses like Blaise Pascal or Nietzsche, they are capable of expressing profound thoughts in a short aphorism or bits of a few sentences. Yeah. Nietzsche would be great if he had a Twitter account. He would be popular or not so, I don't know, but yeah. But because actually the liberal ideal in the classical sense, in the good sense, that would be libertarian ideal today, of an enlightened society, the republic in the noble sense, a republic of enlightened, self-governed citizens. It sounds very good, and it's good, but how many people, intelligent people, take the time as some sort of a moral duty to get informed? The idea of that's what Mortimer J. Adler talks about in How to Read a Book, that the lay person had some sort of a moral duty to be aware, at least of the great topics or debates of his time, and to read some good books, not for the sake of enjoyment, although it can be, but for the sake of being enlightened on the topics, the great questions of the times. That's what the French, I think in the 17th century, called l'honnête homme, literally the honest man, but it's not about honesty, it's about the good citizen. It was not a question of citizenry, but the good member of society, in a sense of a person who has to have culture, not for the sake of showing off, but for the sake of being able to participate in intelligent discussions. And that's a democratic ideal, and here democratic in the good sense of an enlightened people, which is the virtue and intelligence and culture are the prerequisite of a good, healthy society, one might say. And so even among the intelligent people, how many take the time to just gather knowledge for the sake of being able to participate in intelligent debates? I know that there are responsible businessmen and entrepreneurs who do this. Sometimes they leave aside their business for the sake of participating in civic life as some sort of a moral duty, and that's a good initiative. But there are many intelligent people who really are illiterate culturally, one might say, culturally dumb, because they only care about their business. I'm not talking about it's not their business, but there are some who only care about business. They only care about making money. If these are people who have a private business of whatever sort, that's okay if they are fully dedicated to this. But the intelligent people who have the financial means to acquire culture in terms of leisure, and who don't, well. And then, because the people in the broader sense either is not interested enough or educated enough or intelligent enough or to acquire knowledge on its own, there are groups of clerks, priests, not in the literal sense, but ideologues who do the work, they do the thinking instead of the people, and this is what enables tiny groups of manipulators, journalists, intellectuals, scholars, politicians, etc., to hold the grasp over masses of hundreds of millions of people, because the people can't or does not want to or is not interested in thinking for itself, one might say. That's the ideal of was ist Aufklärung of Kant, the ideal of the Enlightenment, actually. Yeah. there are really basic assumptions that there are so many I just take an example. The people, in the sense of the mass of the people, usually they have common sense. A lot of them, and they do not trust the politicians. I'm not a demagogue. I'm not in the sense of the people is right and the politicians they are corrupt. No, I mean the politicians, yes, they are corrupt, but the people is not right. Neither. It's I'm in favor of Jeffersonian aristocracy. Yeah, to avoid the excesses of the oligarchy and to avoid the excesses of mob democracy, basically. Yeah. The oligarchy is the corruption of the aristocracy, and the democracy is the corruption of the republic. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the most of people in democratic societies, they are aware that the politicians are corrupt, but they blame this psychologically on the given politicians, and very few people have the clarity of mind to think like economists. Like that's what Hopper does on Herman Hopper, but I don't ask the people to think like Hopper, but actually he explains intelligently, and others did this before, but he's the one I think of who formulated this the most clearly, as far as I'm aware, that politicians, the problem is not psychological. It's not the problem that they are good or bad politicians. The very function, the very structure of the political system makes it so that for economic reasons, politicians cannot create wealth. They can only live off the wealth created by others. So there are no good or bad politicians, because politicians, from here I'm talking from an economic standpoint, because they are parasitical. It's not derogatory, it's simply in the sense that they can only steal or tax the money of produced by functioning society, by the interactions of economic agents. So the problem, what I'm trying to express, that the problem with politicians is not this politician or that politician, it's the very fact that there are politicians. And here Hopper explains this very well in most of his books. The liberals, I received books by Mr. Charles Gave, a French liberal author. The liberals, the libertarians actually, I distribute these books. I have distributed books like this and I intend to keep distributing them. Here, just let us take the example of Mr. Charles Gave. He's a respectable intellectual in the French context, but he borrows a lot of his ideas from Milton Friedman, and that's not an accusation, that's a good idea, because Milton Friedman was kind of smart. So it's just to illustrate that an intelligent person, he has other qualities, but I don't know enough, but an intelligent person like Mr. Gave, he borrows ideas from Milton Friedman. That's not derogatory, that's a good idea. But that's enough, in a way, to be a brilliant intellectual in the context of modern France. It means that I mean, it's very difficult to do, but actually all you have to do to be above the mass of intellectuals in a country like France, and it's true of a lot of Western countries, but maybe more so in France, if you just borrow good ideas from a relatively clear-minded, good economist like Milton Friedman, it's enough to be intellectually above almost all official intellectuals. And Friedman is not on the level of Hayek, and both are not on the level of Mises, or Rothbard. But that's really the top. But it's just the example of Mr. Charles Gave. It's an intelligent person who draws inspiration from Milton Friedman. That's good, depending on the context. But in this situation, that's good, and it's he has other qualities. But that's enough in the context of a country like France to be above all other intellectuals, all other public intellectuals. Yeah. So, I've discovered a secret about intelligent people. Usually, if you read good books and if you draw inspiration from intelligent classical authors, classical can mean really the classics, but classical, it can also be kind of modern in the sense that Hayek is a classical author, like Friedman, not classical in the sense of John Locke or Stuart Mill or Montesquieu or Tocqueville, etc., but modern classics in a way. But just by borrowing ideas and adapting them to a different particular set of circumstances, but just by borrowing good ideas from classical author, you are very smart. Ron Paul, I have an enormous amount of admiration for Ron Paul, but he's a wonderful intellectual figure, but he's not an intellectual as such. He was trained as a physician, I think, and from a strictly intellectual standpoint, Ron Paul has not contributed, and that's not a reproach, but he has not contributed intellectually to the theoretical aspect like Rothbard or Hopper have done, but that's not what he intended to do, and that's not what he was supposed to do, because precisely he was trained as a physician, but he has contributed tremendously in spreading ideas. But what I'm trying to express is that Ron Paul is not a theorist, yeah. But just because, I mean, not just because he's very intelligent on an individual level, he's competent, he's honest, and he draws inspiration from intelligent authors, Mises, Rothbard, Hayek, Hazlitt, etc., etc. That's the reason why he's above almost all intellectuals here, in the sense of really intellectuals all over the world. I don't know how old Ron Paul is. He's more than 80 years old now, but he's still above the vast majority of public intellectuals all over the Western world, because he's Ron Paul, but also because he has spent his life reading good books, and he's intelligent. So and the same is true for someone like Monsieur Philippe Nemo. Philippe Nemo is an intelligent person. He has great qualities as an individual, but he also borrows ideas from intellectual heavyweights like Hayek, Mises, etc., and he adapts them to a particular context. And again, that's enough to be light years above the competitors. So what I'm trying to express is that any person who is above average in intelligence, even if you are not a genius, if you read good books and borrow good ideas from good author, but if you are intelligent, you have to be able to identify the good author, you will be super smart. Another example, someone like Jeff Deist. Jeff Deist is not an intellectual like Ron Paul. I ordered the book, the recent book by Mr. Jeff Deist. That's one of my vices. I might say I struggle against my vices, but when I know that there are good books that I'm about to receive, especially by someone that I admire, like Mr. Jeff Deist, I'm kind of excited. Yeah. Usually, the overwhelming majority of the books that I buy, I don't even read them. But this one, maybe I would dedicate a significant amount of time to read what Mr. Jeff Deist wrote. Yeah, but I'm kind of excited. I've ordered a book by Jeff Deist. Yeah. Yeah, so Jeff Deist. I don't know how to pronounce this. Mr. Deist. Yeah. He's not an intellectual in the sense of contributing to the theoretical aspect like Mises, Rothbard, Hopper have done, and others, those who have contributed to thorough theoretical understanding of Austrian economics. But he's nonetheless intelligent, and he's an intellectual in the mold of Ron Paul, namely a very intelligent person who succeeds in assimilating a very complex set of theoretical principles and sharing them in an intelligible way. So in this sense, he is very intelligent, but and the same goes for someone like Stephen Molyneux. These are really public intellectuals, but they are not theorists. Yeah, I will not. Yeah, when I Mises, Rothbard, these are theoricians, theoretical theorists in a way, and the intellectuals in the sense of spreading knowledge, like Ron Paul, Jeff Deist, Stephen Molyneux, they are really intelligent people who succeed in understanding the theoretical complexities produced by really the intellectual geniuses, and sharing them, adapting them, and that's what makes them great. But yeah. Yeah. I'm some sort of an intellectual freak, unconsciously or inadvertently. And since I realized this many months ago, I have tried to cure my freak aspect. That's why I talk ordinarily. That's why I've given up on reading German metaphysics. That's why I talk normally in a way. But still, even now that I've given up on the attempt to compete with the German metaphysician, I've been poisoned nonetheless. Yeah. And here, I remember 5 years ago, broadly, that's when I started to think like Hegel formally, without having even discovered Hegel. But even before I discovered the writings of Hegel, I was already thinking like Hegel, at least formally. Yeah. um, Crystallized intelligence. That's one way that Schelling uses to formulate what the physical world is. Crystallized intelligence. I think that's what he says. Yeah. And one way maybe of formulating what I said earlier is that we live within the crystallized mind of God, in a way. That's what the world is. That's the view of Spinoza, Schelling, Philip K. Dick. That's a panentheist view in a philosophical jargon. And the level of intelligence. I can't express or formulate what I understand about God, because I I will go to sleep, and I haven't worked very hard today because I had been working in an exhausting way over the past few days. But I intend to resume work tomorrow and to continue my routine and to continue to produce the content that I had in mind and that I intend to produce, and to keep working and to keep struggling, one might say. I can't blame others, humans, for failing to understand me, even if sometimes I do when I'm really frustrated and when I suffer. But it's not dishonest, but it's I can't actually, because it's too complex. What I'm trying to express is too complex. When I really suffer, I I I I suffer from being misunderstood and from having failed and from failing to communicate. That's why making these videos, I don't know if I will publish them, this kind of random talk, but they are really therapeutic. I feel better once I have talked. Yeah. But I can't blame others for failing to understand me. And I have, maybe I will again, but it's kind of dishonest, but not in a malintentioned way. It's simply maybe an expression of suffering. That's why I have to. It's not that I have to, but eventually I accept a lot of flaws in ordinary human, because it's part of the totality, one might say. And just having a normal life with the small talk and the small talk and the aspects which seem insignificant from a philosophical, scientific perspective, and which are not really interesting from this perspective, I don't blame humans. And if I do, it's because I suffer, but actually most behaviors people, they just, most people, they just want to have an ordinary life because they are plunged into a world. They don't know why they are here. They don't know what they are doing here. They have biological instincts, survival, protection, reproduction, psychological needs. So they just try to go about in the world in the least harmful way possible. They make mistakes, but it's here I'm in a stable mood, and I have just slept for a couple of hours before recording the video, and I have had I haven't worked intellectually very much today, so I'm kind of calm, but I realized this about a year ago, more or less, or 10 months ago, when I watched a video by Stephanie, Lady Gaga. She's just an extraordinary human in a way. She doesn't. What I understood last year is that she, like everyone else, is plunged into a world that she does not understand, She doesn't know what she's doing here. She asks herself questions, and she expresses through her music an existential suffering, and it's different than the one expressed by Eminem or Kanye West, but it's kind of also an attempt to transcend an ontological suffering of existential dread or suffering in a way. And Kanye and Eminem, they suffer partly, as far as I know, from, that's what I can deduce from listening to their songs or their interviews, from an excess of creative intelligence in a way, which they express through artistic genius in their songs. But that's a form of expressing, that's a way of expressing their suffering. And Stephanie does this as well. In her song. And Billie Eilish, that's these four persons, Kanye, Eminem, Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, these are really geniuses in the modern pop culture. But it's not a question of opinion, in a sense that I can understand why some people might not love some of their songs or not even appreciate on a subjective personal basis their work. I might understand, but they cannot deny that these are really geniuses, and in a sense it's kind of it's really genius. I can understand why people, because of personal taste, might not appreciate some artistic expressions of Lady Gaga. I can understand that, but I do not I cannot understand, actually I can, but the genius cannot be denied. There can be debates about artistic taste, one might say, but the genius, and on a personal level, I love the style. I acknowledge the genius and I love the style for the four that I have listed, but yeah, I can understand what there might be debates. But Billie Eilish also she looks very happy in her interviews, and kind of really tormented in a lot of her videos, clips. So she looks happy on the outside, but she has a tormented soul as well. That's otherwise she could not produce this kind of music. So. But here, about genius artists, there are those who produce genius in their creative endeavor, and most great pop music artists, that's the case. But then there are those who really are, in a way, intellectually superior. It does not necessarily mean in terms of IQ or education, although sometimes it's correlated with a high IQ. But there are the creative artists who are brilliant in their artistic production, but relatively average in terms of personal depth outside of their artistic expressions. And there are those who really are outstanding and brilliant and exceptional artistically, but as individuals as well. The interviews of Eminem, Kanye, and Stephanie, it stands out. I don't know much because I'm not a fan in the classical sense, who cares about their biography, etc. But I've watched a few interviews, and Marshall Mathers, I don't know the real name of Kanye West, and Stephanie Germanotta, they are artistic geniuses, but their personality and their intelligence not necessarily quantitatively, although it's above average, but their psychology is really profound and outstanding, even outside of their artistic productions. That's one way of formulating this. That there are artists who are great at producing art, but they have kind of a blend personality outside of their artistic production. But these three and others, they would be exceptional human beings even if they hadn't produced any of their exceptional works of art. That's one way of formulating this. Yeah. I will go to sleep. A lot of creative people, not only in the modern day and age, but historically poets or mathematicians sometimes, or artists, philosophers, they were and they have been tormented people. Not morally tormented. That's really sometimes the negative Christian view. There were morally tormented Christian thinkers, but tormented by they had tormented souls, not in a sense of punishment, but their soul was tormented. And yeah. Yeah. the musicians, the poets. And here, that's I already understood, but the dumb Marxist view, I'm not talking about Karl Marx, but really the dumb analysis of modernity, which analyzes everything in terms of economics, the idea that if you are poor, you suffer, and if you are rich, you have a good life. The entire history of art proves kind of the opposite, because there are a lot of people who are poor economically, but they have really a simple mind, and that's not derogatory, but they are simple-minded, and it's kind of good because they can have a more innocent life. In a way, they have less intense passions, in a way. And there are a lot of people who have been historically privileged economically, but who suffered much more than a lot of poor people. Of course, if you are really poor and you suffer physically, of course, but here the economic analysis is not relevant sufficiently. It's completely off the point. To try to reduce here, to reduce man to a purely material animal, in a way, that's really epistemologically wrong. What drives here really that's sometimes the stupidity of some really low status, low grade intellectuals who think really in terms of money and materialism in a negative sense only. In terms of sports, I don't follow sports. I haven't followed sports for many years, but someone like Guardiola, I know he's kind of a fanatic, and I know Mourinho or the great basketball managers, etc. These people, they earn a lot of money, but usually I'm sure I don't need empirical validation. They don't really care, because what drives them is not a search for more comfort or for a more retirement fund or for a better money legacy for their children or whatever. They don't really care. They are driven by search for achievement, and they, of course it's important, and of course they are partly interested by the money, but actually you miss the point if you these people, the great achievers, they work because they are disinterested, in a way. They are beyond, above material interest. They search. So sometimes they are, most of the time, the great, here I'm talking about managers, they are not interested really in money. It doesn't, they make a lot of money, but that's not the primary motives. And sometimes they are not even interested in I would say of course they are interested in winning and having trophies and prestige, of course, but sometimes they are just interested in doing their work. In a way, they find satisfaction in doing what they are good at. Yeah. And here, I will praise humans, not all of them, but men who are dedicated, who spend their entire life dedicated to one ideal, in a way, even if it's kind of modest in comparison with some greater ideas. What I'm saying is that a football manager, it's not like someone like Elon Musk who wants to send people to Mars. The content is kind of different, but formally they are kind of both. They are idealists here, not in the philosophical sense, but not in a naive sense either. They are just driven by an ideal, and they are fully dedicated, and it's admirable in a way. They are really idealists in the they are driven by a will, sometimes an unconscious will to pursue what they are. They can be passionate, but it's also dedication. They are dedicated to pursuing their task, and it's admirable in a way. Yeah, that's what Eminem talks about. I haven't followed the entirety of his career, but he doesn't need money, he doesn't need fame or sales. He has won all the awards probably, literally or symbolically, but he keeps producing content because this is what he's made for, in a way. Yeah. That's why I'm not an egalitarian. The idea that all humans are equal, or they have the potential of all understanding the truth, etc. Yes, because the truth is the same for all. Yes, but in any other regard, I cannot be, and I don't want to be an egalitarian because it's simply that's a disease. The modern democratic idea that all men are interchangeable, replaceable, etc. No, no. It's ludicrous that it even has to be to be reminded in a way. And the people, the ordinary people who are unequal to the great achievers, they don't even want to be equals. Egalitarianism is not the will of the people, it's the will of, most of the time, of the failed intellectuals who want to arouse the resentment, who want to use the suffering of the people to cure their own resentment, usually. The egalitarians, the people, spontaneously, they do not want equality. They want leadership and hierarchy. Spontaneously, the people is right-wing, and it takes an enormous amount of manipulation and scheming to turn the people into a left-wing mass. Yeah. The people, here in the sense of the ordinary common sense people of any country, they have common sense, usually. In this sense, I'm on the side of the people, but not the political people. I'm on the side of the people who have common sense. Yeah. The people spontaneously does not degenerate. These are only failed intellectuals who turn sometimes parts of the people into degenerates, moral degenerates, but spontaneously the people, here that's maybe my populist style, but spontaneously the people is kind of healthy when it does not become a mass. When the people become a mass or a mob, it's kind of unhealthy. But the people, in a sense, the ordinary workers, those who run a family, who have the ordinary healthy people in any society, spontaneously, with the categories of modernity, it is right-wing because they are spontaneously conservative. They want to conserve their traditions, their lifestyle, their economic conditions, but they don't need the parasitical bureaucracy that's a distorting of the people. It's the people, they don't want to become welfare recipients. That's once they have been turned into a mass of degenerates, in a way that they are willing to accept these. But otherwise, here that's my populist self in the good sense. I have the belief that spontaneously the people might be healthy in some circumstances, the ability to self-regulate and to make natural leaders emerge, because the people, precisely when they are not too manipulated, they understand that they need leaders. They don't want to rule. They want to be ruled by competent people. Yeah. That's why, yeah, I will end the video with a joke. Spontaneously, the people, which in Greek means the demos, spontaneously the people is not democratic. It's not the people who wants democracy. These are the manipulative leftist intellectuals, because democracy means power to the intellectual to influence public opinion, but spontaneously the people is not democratic. Yeah. Jefferson, he was clear-minded. One hour and 30 minutes of therapy. Yeah. I will rest.